is the immediate past president of Toastmasters, and he has a great quote, which I really identify with because it summarizes his philosophy of leadership, and it goes like this. I've learned that leadership is about your heart and not about your head. Teams don't care about your knowledge and expertise until they know that you care about them and the mission. Distinguished Toastmasters, fellow Toastmasters, and warmly welcome guests. Today I'll be speaking about officers' roles. As you know, most Toastmasters clubs have 7 or 8 officers. And I want to speak to also about the Toastmasters motto. And the Toastmasters motto is, where leaders are made. I think a lot of times we join Toastmasters and we think it's just about public speaking, but actually it's a whole lot more broad than that. And I can give an example myself. Because I was the president or have served as the president, I had the confidence to open my own business. This would have never happened had I not had the opportunity to serve as president of Crossroads. If you think about it, being a president of Crossroads is very similar to being the president or CEO of any company. It translates perfectly. I'm sure Marilyn will tell you the same thing, that being a project manager and being the vice president of education, very similar. They go hand in hand. And Marilyn's always telling people, hey, do you want to give a speech? Just yesterday, she said, John, do you want to give a speech? She knows how to motivate, and that's one of the skills of a project manager. The title of my speech is Unleashing Your Potential as an Officer. As you know, the officers are also known as the board of directors or the executive committee, and I'll go ahead and try to list those positions. Some clubs set it up a little bit differently, but most are pretty similar. The positions are, of course, the president. Then I call it the 3 VP positions. You have the vice president of education, which is Marilyn. You have the vice president of public relations, the vice president of membership, and then you have what I call TSS. You have the treasurer, you have the secretary, and you have the sergeant at arms. Ayana is our sergeant at arms, and you can see she always opens and usually closes our meetings as well. And we'll get into that in just a few minutes. But this speech is to encourage you to become an officer because you really are the lifeblood of our meetings. You guys bring the energy, you guys are the cohesiveness, and it's not just about the president. As much as I would like to say it's just my club, it belongs to all of us. So the more engaged you guys are, the better off we all are. Let's go ahead and dive in and talk about those 7 or 8 different officers' roles. The first one, of course, is the president, and it is, in my opinion, the funnest position to have in the whole world. You get to talk in the beginning of the meeting, and in our club at least, you get to do introductions. There's also a lot that goes on behind the scenes when you're the president. I meet with the area director, for example. He does reports. He's making sure that we're getting sufficient members, making sure that our educational goals are met. There is also a district conference twice a year that anyone can attend, but it is the responsibility of the president, and you may not know this, the president or the vice president of education to vote in this, and this ensures the district has the leaders that they need to continue on. So those are some of the things that happen behind the scenes. And of course, the president must be a facilitator. Sometimes there's hard decisions to make. I remember one time we had a member that gave a speech that was a little bit inappropriate, and we had to figure out how are we going to manage that situation. So of course, I called and talked to Marilyn, and we got through that. But those are some of the things you might come across as the president. But overall, I think it is a magnificent position. And I would love to see if any of you guys are interested helping you out. And I would keep on as the immediate past president because that is another role that some clubs have as an officer is immediate past president. That's the person that would be a mentor to the new president. Carrying on, let's go to the vice president of education. Marilyn will probably tell you the vice president of education is the most intense position at Toastmasters as an officer. She is the guru of education. She makes sure that we're giving speeches from pathways. She's making sure you know how to navigate your Toastmasters website, how to sign up for speeches. She's making sure that the agenda is filled. This is a job that doesn't get a whole lot of credit, but she is busy behind the scenes, and that is the vice president of education. And I will tell you, if you're the president and you can work with the vice president of education, it makes your life so nice. Marilyn will probably tell you we talk on the phone all the time, sometimes as much as once or twice a week. Sometimes it's a little bit more separated, but we always talk and plan for our meetings and also our executive board meetings as well. And Marilyn, since you're here, is there anything else you'd like to add about the VP of Education, your roles, or inspire someone to tackle that role in the future?
Let me tell you, education VP is so important, more important than the president, in my opinion. Of course, I'm holding that position.
I
I have
agree.
to say that, right? And the reason is because imagine this: you join a club, and there's two things you want to learn: how to do public speaking and how to be a leader. And as a VP of education, I did not give you any opportunity to give a speech. I did not give you any meeting role in the meeting. So every time you come, you're just like a spec observer. You don't speak, you don't talk, we don't ask you to do anything. What did you think about? Will you spend $60, $90 to do that? Just be in a club, be a silent person? Probably not. So my job is make sure whatever the goal you want to get, the skills you need to develop in the club, my job is to make sure that happens. And that's the reason I bug you to give a speech, play the meeting role. And because when you look good, accomplish any pathways, we win too. So it's a win-win situation. So be patient with me because yes, I do need to beg you, threaten you sometime from time to time, especially when you also I need to ask you to renew your membership because that is one of the things that we need to make sure that the more people we have is better, right? So Sarah, I will come back to you to say, Sarah, would you like to join this wonderful group? Thank you, President.
Awesome. Well said, Marilyn. I'll clap for that. That's great. And I love having you on board as an officer too, because I know I can call you up and say, hey, we haven't heard from so and so in a long time. And you're like, okay, I'll reach out to him. I'll give him a call. Very well done. And also, I'm sure you will agree that the Vice President of Education is all about substance and making the president look good. She's the substance, I'm the sizzle, and I get to be the sizzle because I have the substance behind me. So thank you for being the substance behind the sizzle, Marilyn. Well done. That's seeing the thumbs up. Let's move on to our next officer role, and that is the Vice President of Public Relations. This one's pretty self-explanatory. The Vice President of Public Relations, of course, will promote the club. If you have a strong Vice President of Public Relations, they're going to be on social media. They'll be on our website. They'll be updating that. They'll be bombarding with at least some pictures of our club because people really identify with the pictures. And so that's what it is. Also, can you imagine our club if we had a bunch of flyers and they were being posted at Starbucks, coffee shops, libraries? Maybe we could draw even more attention and grow our club. So this is a role that I think is underutilized, but very, very impactful. And that is a nice segue to our next position, which is the Vice President of Membership. The Vice President of Public Relations brings people in, and the Vice President of Membership makes sure that they stay on as members. So some of the duties that the Vice President of Membership may have is induction ceremonies. This is a way to welcome new people that have just joined our club. Also, they would have, if we were in person, membership applications and help people to sign up, make sure it's seamless process and that they're able to join very easily and enthusiastically. Those are the three Vice President roles that we have as officers at Crossroads and other Toastmasters clubs. There's also the treasurer. Jonathan is our treasurer. You may have received a receipt or an invitation from him recently to make sure that you update your membership and renew. You renew twice a year, and it is very, very affordable. I think it comes to like $10 a month. When we start meeting in person more, he will probably open a bank account if he hasn't done so already, and we'll have extra funds to pay for food and open house and things like that. Thank you, Marilyn. Wow, 8 minutes. It's flying by. Let's go ahead and move to the next position, the secretary. The secretary is the listener. Secretary will listen to everything that happens in our meetings. They'll also help the president, VP of Education if we need to write out or send a message to the district. This person is very impactful. At one point in time, we had a lady named Mercedes that was giving updates on our website, on WhatsApp, and she was giving those so that people that missed the meeting knew exactly what was going on. And it was also a great way to personally recognize Toastmasters that had given great speeches or had filled into roles. So I'd love to have that role taken again. And last but not least is the Sergeant at Arms. Some people say Sergeant of Arms, but the correct term is Sergeant at Arms. And it is, of course, Ayana, and she serves in the duties are more intensive. If you are in person, she would be responsible for setting up the room. We do have a lectern that's portable. We have a banner. We have a gavel. And at one point in time, we had actual lights that were green, yellow, and red, which were really cool so people could see how they were progressing with the time. This is a great role. I used to have a teacher in high school who would stand right at the door and welcome people as they came in, and that would totally set the tone. And we also knew he was all business, right? Like you weren't going to be chewing gum and acting out in his class because he was going to get you. So that is the role at Sergeant at Arms, also very vital at contests because they will escort people in and out of the room, make sure no one comes into the room while a speaker is giving a contest speech. And these are the main roles, and let me go ahead and try to wrap things up. It's much like a team. Think of a baseball team. You got first base, second base, shortstop, third base, you got your outfield, you got your pitcher, you got your catcher. If you have one of those positions that's AWOL, that's not available, then you have a gap in your defense. So if you don't have the second baseman, then the first baseman's trying to cover first base and second base. You have gaps, which every club has this from time to time. You just want to make sure that those gaps get closed up in the long run so that every person is on the same page and able to contribute to enthusiasm and passion. And that's really what it's all about. Matt Kinsley at the very beginning of the speech talked about how important it is as a leader to be all about heart, and then the mind and expertise comes in. So if you don't know a specific role, it's okay. If you have the passion, that's really what you need. Quick review, we have 7 different officers' roles: President, Vice President of Education, Vice President of Public Relations, Vice President of Membership, Treasurer, Secretary, and Sergeant at Arms. And of course, immediate past president will be another role. So what are you waiting for? Join, get active, become an officer. Back to you, Madam Toastmaster.